We got some absolute insanity in this chapter, like everything hits the fan at the same time, with one of our favorite characters getting seemingly ended brutally and in the most heart-wrenching way possible. We got IMU showing up and even Dragon finally getting into the swing of things, so make sure to stay tuned for this insane chapter. Now, channel the Pirate King Within and smash that like button if you enjoy seeing One Piece reviews like this one on the channel and want to keep them coming. Make this the video you join the Nakama if you haven't already by subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss future One Piece reviews and updates. And now, without further ado, let's jump into it, spoilers and all. Now, this chapter is called 1 Second, and it points to the fact how in 1 second everything changes, as we'll see. Now, 1 second is super important. Definitely a hype title for a hype chapter, very accurate. On the color spread, we also get one I'm sure a lot of us will appreciate, with the Straw Hats in a maid cafe with the Straw Hat girls, including Lilith and Bonnie in this case, wearing maid costumes. We even get Usopp being shocked by the high prices, but that's not too surprising when you realize that Nami is one of the owners of the maid cafe, so it all clicks. We start where we left off with our Straw Hats, especially Usopp being shocked to see Scopper, the legend, after he just cut Summers with his axe. Keep in mind, not everyone knows exactly who Scopper is right now. We're told by the narrator that the Pirate King's left hand emerges from nowhere. Summers actually screams out. Seeing him in actual dire shape, or at least acting like it at least, is so satisfying after how he's been acting and all the terrible stuff he's done already that we know of. He just went from smug, untouchable supervillain to a crybaby just like that. Scopper continues to impress. Let me know if you agree in the comments, but for me, it really seems like Oda's giving even more love to Scopper than even to Rayleigh in terms of making him legendary even in his old age. Let me know if you agree or if it's just my recency bias that's making me feel that way. Usopp, who as mentioned is the most shocked, asks what we're all thinking. Why did that work? What did you do? And it sucks that Scopper just doesn't take a second to just reveal this in hindsight, but whatever. Hopefully we'll find out soon. But after all, these gods' knights seemed untouchable and like they'd regenerate from the worst damage effortlessly. Hopefully we finally find out in this chapter if it's an advanced Conqueror's Haki, Sea Stone, or what exactly. And then we get a classic old guy comment that I can see coming from Garp or Rayleigh too. Scopper, after coming in like a legendary conquering hero and crushing it, says, "I'm rusty." He immediately rushes in again to attack, but Summers puts up a vine shield with a move called Briar Barrier. It's clear Summers is worried and out of breath. He calls Scopper by his legendary title of Mountain Eater and asks, "Why are you in Elbaf?" Clearly, he wasn't expecting to have to deal with him here. Scopper says nothing wrong with a serious talk, right? As he continues to fight in a fast-paced way with Summers. Clearly, it looks like Scopper is setting the pace of the fight. Finally, Usopp is filled in that Nami met him when they were at the castle. Nami says something that's not quite true, I would argue. But she says, yeah, Luffy and Zoro were totally overwhelmed by him. It's easier to get that impression though when Scopper stopped the fight just as Luffy and Zoro were about to get serious. Nami also notes that he's Colin's father, the kid they met at the school. Then, having heard his name, they realize, whoa, he's equal to Rayleigh? He's the left hand of the Pirate King? And they wonder too that that sort of person is in the land of the giants. Chopper, still hidden, wonders why Scopper's attacks are really having an impact, unlike the other attacks. Robin, being the admirable character she is, starts to attempt to use her powers to assist, but Jinbei quickly shuts it down, saying, "Stop it, Robin. His iron thorns are a terrible matchup for your hand-to-hand combat style." Summers has clearly had enough and is desperate to end it, and so he uses the move Thorn Rush, Hell of the Crimson Lotus. Definitely his finisher move. Giant thorns all attack Scopper together. Even the ground is now laced with thorns, so as Summer says, there isn't even a square inch for Scopper to stand on. Scopper, being such a legend, is not only not worried about this, but says, "I'm in a hurry, you know." He rushes in and cuts Summers in half with his axe, and of course we do see the black lightning we associate with powerful Haki, suggesting again that it could be tied to some advanced Conqueror's Haki usage, but nothing 100% confirmed just yet. After the attack, when Scopper is about to land on spikes, he lands with the axe to the ground and uses it to leap away from all the spikes. It's a beautiful scene. He obviously didn't think that far ahead, but ended up just figuring it out anyways. Not only that, he doesn't even check in with the Straw Hats. He wastes no time saying, "Wait up, Colin," and continues running. I completely get it. He's trying to save his son as fast as possible, but at the same time, I'm like, I should have just screamed out what the weakness actually is, but maybe it's not something these guys can do. Like I said, if it's advanced Conquerors hockey, then it's not like Usopp could just, end up using that whenever he wants to win. Anyways, our Straw Hats are shocked that Scopper just took out Summers just like that, and Chopper finally comes out. They ask Chopper where he's going since they're tied up and need help. But Chopper reveals that he's trying to find out how he cut someone who is immortal. That could be critical information, so he heads directly to find out, Spike's in his path or not. Hopefully he's able to figure it out for us once and for all. We then jump to where Killingham and Ange are, and as told, they're setting things like the school and library on fire to save the kids. Well, not Killingham probably, but Ange at least is cooperating because of that. Killingham says, "Well done, this should be good," while Ange is shown crying. Killingham helps out with a fire arrow, saying, "I understand you did all you can, that's enough. As for over there, I'll deal with it." I still think Killingham, as I mentioned before, is probably way less evil than Summers, and here he definitely seems pretty empathetic compared to Summers, but we'll see. Maybe Oda is tricking me, maybe he is preparing some kind of crazy twist with him, and I'll end up being totally wrong. Robin, for her part, is very shook to see the library burning. We jump to other giants and they say, "It's not your fault, Yarul," as Yarul is shown crying. He says the words of our ancestors are ... History itself is ... He doesn't say anything, but one could imagine him finishing the sentence with burning or dying or something like that. But I think it seems a lot less final, all of this burning stuff, because most of us probably know that Vegapunk has that knowledge stored anyways and could probably reproduce it when needed. Killingham then says, "Ignition complete." Gunko tells the giant girl on the arrow to withdraw since the school and library were burned as asked. Gunko asks her, "Is it so hard to show a little joy? Her life was saved after all, but as we saw last time, she would have rather been sacrificed herself than everyone else suffering." She's more upset about her being saved than anything. She says, "I'm sorry," as she walks back towards land. She says, "I'm super sorry for being alive." That's some Robin vibes right there, and everyone feels for her. She continues saying, "It's all my fault that everything is burning." This gets broadcasted and everyone feels for her, as I mentioned, and obviously disagrees with what she's saying. The students say, "Stop it, Ronya," while the giant adults say, "That's not true, Ronya." No one feels that way, obviously. Then the legend himself appears to beat his second God's Knight in a matter of minutes, or at least that's the plan. He says, "Culture, history, children, even military might. You lot have no right to take that away." Well said right there. Gunko is not nearly as scared as Summers was though, that's something to note. She says, "The Pirate King's crew, ? You do know that resisting means the hostages will die, right?" This makes me wish he didn't scream out at her before attacking, but it probably wouldn't have made a difference either way. She probably would have seen him coming at some point, but if he just snuck up on her, I feel like a lot of this could have been avoided, as we'll see. The children actually mess it up. They say, "Colin, Yasan is here. He's come to rescue us." While Scopper looks very pained to hear this, thinking, "Don't give it away, Colin." So if you snuck up, maybe Colin couldn't have given it away. Just a thought. Obviously, he knows that if she uses Colin's safety against him, he'll have a hard, if not impossible, time beating her. And of course, Colin immediately says, "Dad!" He lights up. As if that wasn't enough, he says, "That's my dad, everybody. My dad is stronger than everyone else's. He'll save everybody, hooray." Obviously saying that wasn't smart, and Gunko immediately puts an arrow to the crying Colin's neck. He says, "Get off me," and Gunko says, "Off you if you insist." I don't know what the official translation will end up being, but this was some pretty funny wordplay right here. She says, "Challenging me means only one thing." Meanwhile, Scopper is thinking to himself that this is his last chance so the fires can be put out and the children saved. It'll have to be done in an instant, and he knows that. He says, "Colin, just give me 1 second. There's the title right there. Hold on. You're a strong kid." And then we get one of the most touching and emotional moments in a while. We can't say the most emotional moments in all of One Piece because of that Kuma stuff, but this one is crazy. Colin says, "Got it, Dad. I'm a warrior. Please defeat her." That trust in his dad is really touching, man, I gotta say. Gunko thinks, however, that a life cannot be returned. We see some flashbacks of Scopper and Ripley when she gave birth to Colin. He says he's such a big cutie. Thank you for giving him life, Ripley. This is a treasure of a lifetime, so there you go. That's the One Piece. Kidding. But it at least appears to be Scopper's great treasure. Ripley in the present now screams, "Colin, please be okay." Scopper thinks to himself if he can't stop her, the tragedy will worsen. Then, with advanced observation hockey, as the title suggests, Scopper sees 1 second or so into the future and sees Colin getting a mortal wound. Scopper realizes he's not fast enough. He drops his axe, surrendering, and cries while saying, "Please stop. I give up." He apologizes to Elbath, and Gunko calls him such a weak being, which is going to be ironic in a second, as she sends deadly arrows through him, and it seems like the end for him. Obviously, with One Piece, you hesitate to ever proclaim it, but narratively and everything, definitely seems like he sacrificed his life for his son. He apologizes as he falls, saying, "I'm sorry, Colin. It must have hurt real bad. Sorry." For his part, Colin is crying more than ever, understandably, and screams, "Dad! Daddy!" At this point, Gunko seemingly gets a flashback of someone who could be her based on the appearance, and that person is saying "father" in the flashback, also screaming it out. Then we interestingly see a silhouette of Brook in the past holding hands with a little girl. We knew these guys had a connection, but could it be this crazy as this flashback is so obviously implying? Brook's past silhouette seemed to say, "Yo ho ho, you see, my dream is to be a pirate," end quote. Let me know what you make of this flashback, but it's definitely intriguing and shocking with its possible implications. Brook thinks to himself, "Oh, my apologies." Gunko is out of it thinking, "Brook?" Question mark, exclamation mark, and gasping for breath. "Is that you, Brook?" And she starts running. But just as we're about to find out what is going on, what is this insanity, what is this craziness between Gunko and Brook, IMU suddenly makes an appearance in the craziest way. I've been saying someone else needs to show up since these three just were not enough to take on the Straw Hats in an interesting and meaningful way, especially when you consider that they're more than just Straw Hats like the Giants and everybody. Scopper, of course, as well. But even I didn't really expect for IMU to appear so soon. She takes over Gunko's body and says, "What is with all this commotion? The Holy Land is currently in a sea of flames. As we know, the revolutionaries are working on that, so yes, even Dragon and his team are finally doing something significant. Let's just hope it will soon be on screen rather than just hearing about it, but if anyone's gonna talk about it, you gotta admit, IMU talking about it is pretty hype." The endgame is definitely here with all these major characters in action, that's for sure. Even the kids notice the takeover, saying Gunko's face got all scary. IMU continues saying, "Thou seems to require additional military force. Mu will show thee the dominion of God." And because of Naruto, I know that Mu means nothing. So it's probably the way that IMU refers to themselves. And the editor says God's advent. So here we are, the secret ruler of the world. You don't get a bigger boss battle than this, has just made an appearance on the battlefield where the Straw Hats are. Hopefully we get something more substantial than with Shamrock, when he just showed up and left us just as quickly, seemingly, but we'll find out soon. Let me know what you thought about this chapter and whether we'll see something truly hype like IMU versus Luffy or not, if it'll be very short-lived like with Shamrock. If you enjoyed this one, you won't want to miss this video on screen right now that YouTube says you'll like and subscribe for more One Piece, and I'll see you in the next one.